lost our chair.
It's been a day. Maybe I'll have to stand up. You guys, okay, you ready?
You want me to open?
You're introing, and he's gonna give the background, okay? Then we'll go to commercial after that, and then we'll have a guest, okay? You ready? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome in to the Max Stern Athletic Center special broadcast Monday here for the Selection Show. I'm Yehoshua Segal, joined by our president, David Schwartzman, and our CCO, Akiva Poppers. Good afternoon to both of you.
Good afternoon, Yehoshua. It's a pleasure to be here, especially after yesterday's tremendous performance, and now be with the team as we have the Selection Show.
First, I want to say one thing. These guys have done incredible coverage all season. Segal on the call has been outstanding. Poppers, no one does content creation like Akiva Poppers does. Big yesh koch to those guys, and Dower who's not here, and everybody who's worked with us. But it's all come down to this today. And this is one exciting day to be here in the Max Stern Athletic Center. What a beautiful thing they've done for us, no?
Yeah, this really looks great. We have the whole team set up behind us. Fans are piling in as they grab their lunch. Selection Show will start in about 5 minutes. Akiva, just if you can give us a little background as to how the Selection Show exactly works for all our viewers out there.
Yeah, so this is not like the D1 tournament. 64 teams, just like you have at the D1 tournament, but there are 16 hosts. Each host has 4 schools there. So on Friday, each host will have 2 games, and the winners of those games will play on Saturday. And then those 16 teams, which come out of those 16 host schools, will then be in the Sweet 16 of the tournament. So that from then on out, it's the same. But first 2 rounds are different. And so the question which everyone has, of course, is whether or not Yeshiva is going to be a host in the first and second rounds.
Right, and the question we all want to know is, what are Yeshiva's chances of being a host school?
So a D3 Hoops article went out last night which says, we think that Yeshiva could be a host, whatever. I don't see it. Honestly, it's not, of course, I want us to be a host. I simply do not see it. Just remember that the D3Hoops.com top 25 is not relevant for NCAA selection. The committee is completely separate. We're number 2 in the region behind Stevens, so Stevens is going to host almost guaranteed. They applied, so they're going to host. Yeshiva applied to host as well, but being that other regions are really stacked, like the Central has 11 teams, which you can make the argument they're all just as good as Yeshiva. So I see it very, very unlikely that the maximum host. The only really way we can host is if things work out such that the regions would make it that basically the travel limits, which are 500 miles from the host schools, would allow you to see those. It's just simply unlikely.
Well, there you have it. We will have a live Selection Show coming up right after this.
Pain-free, the PMR Center is here for you. We'll help you feel like yourself again. Let us help you reach your goals at one of our 5 locations in New York and New Jersey.
Shalom, my name is Rabbi Yaakov Trump, and I serve the esteemed community of the Young Israel of Lawrence Cedarhurst, and I want to reach out to you about the OIC, which is the Orthodox Israel Coalition. And perhaps you have not heard about this yet, but right now is a critical moment for the World Zionist Congress. The voting for the World Zionist Congress for its delegates begins on January 21st, 2020, and there is a large slate for the Vote Torah Party, which is under Mizrahi with the auspices, working together with the OU, with YU, with the RCA, with Amit, with Torah College, with Bnei Akiva and Torah Mitzion, as one coalition, saying that when it comes to agenda setting in the Jewish world, whether it be in Israel or in the diaspora, those decisions, those votes should take into account the growing Torah community, which is what we are part of. In order to be able to do that, we have a large slate of leaders from across the world, and specifically in America, it's the opportunity to vote. I encourage you to find out more, to take a look at the slate of almost 500 leaders for the OIC, and take a moment to vote and make a difference. Have a fantastic day.
And we are joined here by most outstanding player of the Skyline Conference Championship, where he had a triple-double. Gabe Leifer, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Well, again, a lot of excitement, a lot of mystery coming in the next few minutes. What is Coach Steinmetz, or I guess the people leading you, telling you to expect from the Selection Show today?
We honestly don't know what to expect, because I believe that no one in the Skyline Conference has ever been in this position going into the tournament, having the record that we do and beating the teams that we beat, and also doing what we did in the conference. So we don't know what to expect. I guess we'll be able to set precedents today. But we're just ready to play whoever comes our way.
And I can tell you, just from my perspective, I'm just a broadcaster, and I've been walking around campus since 4 o'clock yesterday after the win. and it's been extremely, extremely exciting with literally tons of people coming up to me and just talking about the game. There's definitely an excitement on campus. What have your last 18 hours or so been like?
Extremely sore because of the game, but they've been awesome. It's an unbelievable experience. If you saw, ever since Poppers' article came out, the fans have been amazing, and it was an unbelievable experience, and it's just awesome being with your teammates. We had team dinner. It was just a really special experience.
Amazing. Well, there you have it. That's Gabe Leifer, Selection Show Live, coming at you right after this.
Know that 90% of low back pain and sciatica can be treated without surgery? After a detailed evaluation, our physical therapists use gentle, hands-on techniques to alleviate most forms of low back pain. Our physicians have expertise in medication management, as well as a variety of interventional techniques, including trigger point injections. By utilizing a combination of these options, we can help you today. PM&R, the proud sponsor of Yeshiva University Athletics. Let us help you reach your goals at one of our 5 locations in New York and New Jersey. The Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation Center has been providing its patients with the best possible care of sports, spine, orthopedic, and neuromuscular conditions. Emphasis is placed on manual techniques and individualized home exercise programs.
Men's basketball selection show. Brendan Dooley. Today, we will unveil our field of 64 teams that will compete for our national championship. This year's tournament's formatted a little differently. Before we tell you who's in and who's out, we'll make sure you're caught up to speed on how things are going to work this year. First of all, the national championship game will be held at State Farm Arena in Atlanta on April 5th. National quarterfinals and semifinals will take place in Fort Wayne, Indiana at Allen County War Memorial Coliseum. That's March 20th and 21st. That means the second weekend of this year's tournament will include 16 teams, and just one game instead of 2 and 8 different. 8 winning teams in our third round will all travel to Fort Wayne for a great showcase event across Division III. And before we get started, we have a special guest with us again this year. He is a great friend of Division III basketball. Dave McHugh from D3Hoops.com joins us to break down the bracket reveal in real time. Dave, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We'll get into the specifics of the bracket in just a second, but I want to ask you this. What do you hope to learn along the way about the committee's thought process during these unveilings?
Well, to be honest with you, we don't have enough time for me to go into everything I'm interested in finding out, but the most important one, you hinted at it, it's the round of 16 where we have 8 different sites, the geography. And the mileage comes into play there. I'm interested to see how the committee actually brackets everybody, not only for that weekend potentially, but the first weekend with that in mind. And see how creative they are able to be going into that and then coming out going to Fort Wayne.
Well, they certainly always try to stress creativity in a national bracket, but also one that makes sense. So let's find out who's in and who's out. And we begin in the top left corner of our bracket with last year's national runner-up, an at-large bid for the Garnet from Swarthmore. And their opening round opponent, the Brooklyn Bulldogs from the City University of New York Athletic Conference. Swarthmore lost their conference championship game, but widely considered one of the top 5 teams in the country this year. How about Brooklyn? 3 road games as the 5 seed in their conference tournament, first title since 2016. Next team out of the at-large pool, Babson, the Beavers out of the NUMAC in the tournament this year. They're going to take on the champions in the Liberty League, the Bombers from Ithaca, who beat RPI in overtime. Ithaca's best season in 7 years when they won 2 NCAA tournament games, also made the big dance last year. Our next host site is down in Texas, Dallas, the Comets out of the American Southwest Conference. They are in the tournament as an at-large pool. They will host the Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference champion Centenary from Louisiana, the Gents, who beat Texas Lutheran for their conference title. The Gents won their first conference tourney title in program history. They're in the national tournament for the first time ever. Next team, also from the Southern region, from the American Southwest Conference, LeTourneau They beat East Texas Baptist by 3. Coach Dan Miller's Yellow Jackets from Longview won their first ASC title in school history, just their second ever trip to the conference title game. And the last team of these first 8 from Pool C, the Whitworth Pirates out of the Northwest Conference. Laterno and Whitworth going to head down to Texas Dallas. Dave, what do you think about the first 8 teams in our bracket?
Yeah, certainly revealing, interesting here, to be honest. We'll start at the top. Swarthmore considered one of the best teams in the country all season, if not number 1. They come in with only 1 loss. It came in the conference final to rival Johns Hopkins. In fact, they've only had 2 losses, counting the national championship game last year, since mid-January of last season. They've got an inside-outside threat in Zach Odell and Nate Schaefer, 2 of the best shot blockers in the country. Those 2 can also shoot along with the rest of the squad from outside. They're also one of the best rebounding teams. Their setup is basically the top team in the country bracketing-wise, and that's why we see them in the upper left. Brooklyn already has put on that Cinderella slipper just a wee bit earlier than everybody else. The underdog Bulldogs knocking off, as you pointed out, a number of teams in the CUNYAC tournament, including the top seed, John Jay, in overtime. They've been challenged with injuries all season. They may be peaking at the right time. Babson, in the meantime, the at-large selection, as you mentioned, champs not that long ago for the nation, overcoming injuries themselves. Unfortunately, they've lost 3 of their last 5. They're going to have a bit of a challenge with Ithaca, I think. Bombers knocked off 2 of the favorites in the Liberty League just to get in here and popped a couple of bubbles along the way. First time they're here since 2013. And then that pod in Texas. This is unavoidable. We had to have a pod down there with the national committee. Texas, Dallas, the Comets might be one of the better teams in the country that isn't getting enough attention. They certainly needed an at-large selection after East Texas Baptist knocked them off in the conference semifinals, but the Comets have had to deal with not only having an All-American favorite not back this season due to injury, if not number 1. They come in with only 1 loss. It came in the court. They've been through a lot, but it's brought them together. They may be much tougher than people realize in this tournament. And they will get Centenary, as you mentioned, of Louisiana, 10 games in a row, SCAC champs, first conference title since 1980. But that was in a different division. This is their first trip to the NCAA tournament, as you mentioned, since they joined the division last decade. Despite being close, by the way, this is the first time these 2 teams have faced off since 2015.
Certainly looking forward to seeing how the rest of that bracket moves along. Let's continue on here. Our next host is unbeaten at home this year and earned the right to stay there. Welcome to the tournament, the Brockport Golden Eagles. They beat SUNY Potsdam by 27 in the conference championship game. Their reward, the champions from the NUMAC, the 5th seed and tournament darling Coast Guard. Unbelievable work by the Coast Guard Bears. Noah Valdez named the tournament's most outstanding player. Pretty impressive the way Coast Guard went on the road. They trailed in the championship game, by the way, by 25 points in the second half, but still pulled out a victory. Next team, the Middlebury Panthers. Their 11th NCAA tournament appearance. They're out of the NESCAC, and they will play Westfield State, the Owls, champions of the Massachusetts State College Athletic Conference. Our next team is the NESCAC champion, the Tufts Jumbos, in double overtime. They're hosting, they beat Colby in that championship game. Heroic efforts from Eric Savage and Luke Rogers lifted them to a championship for the first time ever in conference. They'll play the Western Connecticut State Colonials, making their 13th trip to the NCAA tournament, but they're first under their second-year coaching staff. Next up, it's a big one, a Pool C bid to Rensselaer. The RPI Engineers out of the Liberty League, 23-4, a terrific season, and it's not over quite yet. Their first-round opponent from the New England Collegiate Conference, the New England College Pilgrims, 21-6 this season. What a close to the year. They started 2-3, but went 19-3 the rest of the way. Congrats to head coach Charlie Mason, who's in his 17th season up in New Hampshire. Dave, your thoughts on these last 8 teams?
Well, Brockport gets to take advantage of being at home, and that's a big deal for them. They haven't lost at home this season. They've only had 1 loss in the conference, which they have dominated all season long. This is a big opportunity for Greg Dunn's squad to be at home. Last time they were on the road in the NCAA tournament, it didn't work so well. They didn't get out of the first round. They're on a 17-game winning streak. Rockport, a team to watch that hasn't gotten a lot of attention so far this season. Coast Guard is reliving, I feel like, 2007 here. The last time in 2007, they were the 7th seed, believe it or not, and won the NUMAC title that year as well. Also beat WPI in the championship game. Also entered the dance 14 and 13. Any of that sound familiar? Watch out for Coast Guard. They can always be a little bit tough. By the way, they started the season in Anchorage, Alaska. Playing Anchorage, Alaska as part of the Armed Forces Classic. Middlebury's a tough team. Now they're once again having to sit for about 2 weeks between games because they lost in the quarterfinals of the NESCAC. Panthers are always tough with their inside game. Coach Jeff Brown is always capable of having a team that can stifle their opponents. But it's the offense this year that's really clicking, 83 points a game. But they may have lost a chance of hosting because they
21-6 this season. What a close to the year. They started 2-3.
The Owls certainly a really good team to watch out for. I think this is an interesting test for Middlebury. A little different style than they used to. Tufts gets to host at home. They also did that in the NESCAC tournament. They've been kind of under the radar in the NESCAC because other teams have gotten their attention in that conference, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they play at home. Their women's team has overshadowed them quite a bit. Western Connecticut, another really good team, as you said, under the second-year program. They're really kind of coming back into the mix. RPI, getting the at-large bid, they're going to be really happy about that. Ended up with a really strong resume at the end of the season. They're playing New England College. I think a bit of an unknown up there. RPI kind of throws a wrinkle in there, too, that otherwise is an all-New England matchup.
No doubt about it. 16 teams in, 6 of the 21 non-AQs. We move to the lower left corner of the bracket now, where our next team is out of Pool C, the Pioneers from Wisconsin-Platteville. They won their 21st WIAC championship in the regular season and making their first tournament appearance since 2009. They'll open things up with a team from the Northern Athletics Collegiate Conference, the champions, the Falcons from Concordia, Wisconsin. 19 wins this year, ties their most since joining the NACC about 6 years ago. 2 Pool C teams coming, and they're 2 teams that are anxious to get rolling. The Tommies from St. Thomas out of the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and they're going to take on the Green Knights from St. Norbert out of the Midwest Conference. The Tommies, 2-time NCAA champs, 14th appearance in the tournament for them. Another host site this weekend, St. Thomas knows all about them. It's the Johnnies from St. John's. St. John's with a 25-2 record this year included a season-opening loss to Nebraska Wesleyan. They've been ranked in the top 3 in the country all season long. The Midwest Conference has another representative. The Redhawks from Ripon upset St. Norbert 84-71 in the championship game. They won the regular season title by 3 games and have won 11 in a row coming in. Next on the docket, the conference champ from the Northwest Conference, the Whitman Blues, with an impressive 86-80 win over Whitworth. They locked up another AQ. This year's senior class were freshmen when the team went 31-1, lost in the national semifinals to Babson. They have won 31, 29, and 28 games the last 3 years without losing a conference game. And rounding out this pod, a very nervous bubble team. The Blue Golds from Wisconsin-Eau Claire, 19-9 out of the WIAC on the back of an incredible number of games against regionally ranked opponents. Wisconsin-Eau Claire back in the field. Dave, your thoughts on this group of 8?
I don't know where to start with this group of 8 because right now there are a few bubble teams who got really nervous seeing Eau Claire at the bottom of that bracket. We'll start at the top. Platteville rose to the top of the WIAC conference and certainly was a challenging team to say the least. But they have to get an at-large bid to get into this tournament. But watch out for Concordia, Wisconsin. The NACC teams have a tendency for knocking off teams in the first round, ones that we think on paper they have no chance against. So watch out for that first round game. St. Thomas, St. Norbert, fascinating matchup here, of course, at Platteville. Tommy's looking really good until the Johnnies kind of dismantled them in the championship game of the conference. Tommy's, of course, are making headlines in the offseason about where their future may be. They would love to have a good run in the tournament this year. And St. Norbert, I think, has been a much better team than people realize. This might be one of the strongest St. Norbert teams I've seen in the tournament. Johnny's come into this one. Watch out. Their best player, Warford, he's not feeling well, apparently.
Without losing a conference game. And rounding out this pod, a very nervous bubble team. The Blue Golds from Wisconsin Eau Claire, 19-9.
Including in the championship game. Ripon is fascinating here because they're the ones who knocked off Nebraska Western a couple of times, and including getting into the tournament. They might be the wild card in this pod. Whitman gets in. I forgot to mention Whitworth earlier, and I apologize. Whitworth actually ended Whitman's 60-plus in-season conference winning streak, but then Whitman responded by beating Whitworth at their home court for the conference championship. What's interesting here, by seeing Whitworth and Whitman both on the road, there's no bracket in the Northwest Conference. That is big news in Division III, and certainly one of the big headlines coming out of this bracket. And then you look at Eau Claire. This is the team that was on the bubble when we certainly were making our prognostications. This is going to have people nervous. Eau Claire gets in because they had a really strong schedule. They got to the conference championship game. This makes, an interesting dynamic the rest of the bracket.
No doubt about it. There's 8 teams left on the bottom left-hand side with some more big trips coming. Here they go. The last 8 teams in the left-hand side. We start where the tournament will finish down in Atlanta. We're hosting the first weekend. The Emory Eagles, the only conference in the country, the University Athletic Association, that does not have a conference tournament. Emory wins the bid by virtue of having swept WashU in the regular season. 21-4, Emory a consensus top 25 team in the country all year. Their first round matchup out of the USA South, the Monarchs from Methodist. Conference champions, their first title since 2004-2005. Head coach David Smith has been there for 20 years. He's taking his 3rd team to the big dance. Also in this pod, the Colonels from Center College over in Danville, Kentucky, out of the Southern Athletic Association. They haven't been to the tournament in 6 years. They're going for the 8th time now under head coach Greg Mason. And the final team in the bottom left-hand corner of this pod, from the Southern Collegiate Intercollegiate, the Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Association, the Sagehens from Pomona-Pitzer. Sagehens winning back-to-back conference titles for the first time since 2004-2005. Another West Coast team flying across the country. Last 4 here after a championship game that many fans in Ohio won't soon forget. Your next host, the College of Worcester. The Scots annihilated Wittenberg in that championship game. They will play the champion from the President's Athletic Conference, the Grove City Wolverines, who won their first PAC title since 2010. How about this note on Worcester? They are making their NCAA D3 record 18th consecutive appearance in the Big Dance. Of course, head coach Steve Moore in his final season, only Kansas, Duke, Michigan State, and Gonzaga have had more consecutive NCAA tournament appearances across all divisions of college basketball. Final 2 teams from the CCIW, the champions. They were the 4 seed, but they won it all. The Elmhurst Blue Jays. They beat Illinois Wesleyan for the first title in program history. And out of the MAC Commonwealth, the Lycoming Warriors, champions from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. They were 5-11 in league play last year, last in the conference, but what a turnaround here in 2020. There's some really cool matchups here, Dave. Anyone stand out to you that you like the most?
Well, there's a couple fascinating storylines in here. First off, Emory finding out that they basically got the automatic bid while sitting in the airport after their game this weekend in the UAA. They were waiting for WashU to play Chicago, found out Chicago beat WashU, which put them in a co-championship and gave Emory the automatic bid, so they're running up and down the terminal celebrating that. They're a tough team, had some tough losses this season, but they're to watch out for down there in the southeast, for lack of a better description. Methodist, kind of a bit of an unknown. A nice run to get into the tournament here. I think Emory's going to have a little bit of a battle there. Center is basically doing what they didn't do last season, was that get into the tournament. Nice job of getting the AQ by just winning it all. get in, but they get an unknown and Pomona pitcher.
And out of the MAC Commonwealth, the Lycoming Warriors, champions from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. They were 5-11 in league play last year.
I think this is a fascinating matchup for center and Pomona pitcher at Emory. Of course, Emory, a couple miles from where we'll be playing the championship game in Atlanta. Worcester against Grove City. Steve Moore, the head coach of Worcester, retiring at the end of this season. And to be honest with you, as the season was closing out, Worcester did not look like they could get into the tournament unless they won the AQ. And the team responded, including an incredible second half against Wittenberg to get them into the tournament. Steve Moore's career, incredible career, continues. Grove City into the tournament for the first time in a long time. Coach Laney there doing a tremendous job with that program. A tough battle with Worcester, but I think anybody can come out of that game. Elmhurst has played really well in the CCIW. They stumbled a little bit later in the season, but got it done when they needed to. Watch out for the Blue Jays. And Lycoming, a little bit of an unknown. The MAC Commonwealth wasn't really the toughest it's been. Well, maybe it was from top to bottom, but the top wasn't as tough as it was. Widener stumbled at the end, and Lycoming comes out of this. They're an unknown there in the bottom corner.
I can't wait to see how Lycoming competes. There's no doubt this is what everybody plays for this time of year. 32 teams are in. Means half the field is set. 10 of the 21 at-large bids have been handed out. So we'll take a quick timeout. Bring you the right half of the bracket coming up next on NCAA.com.
Welcome back to the Selection Show. We're going to unveil our field for the 2020 men's basketball championship upper right-hand corner of the bracket, where the Mount Union Purple Raiders have earned the right to host the opening weekend. Conference champions out of the Ohio Athletic Conference, 17 wins in a row. Their opponent in the first round, the Colonial States Athletic Conference champion, the Highlanders from Cairn University, schools in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, 69th season as a program, and they finally get their revenge after losing last year's championship game. Next up, in a terrific championship game, in the Capital Athletic Conference, York knocked off Christopher Newport, and the Spartans are dancing here in 2020. And they will take on the Cardinals from St. John Fisher, who came back from down 20 to beat Nazareth in the Empire 8 title game. Our next host, another Ohio-based program out of Pool C, the Wittenberg Tigers out of the North Coast Athletic Conference, who mentioned they lost to Worcester, but certainly an elite team here this season. Their first round opponent, boy, they're happy to be here this year. Automatic bid for the Red Hawks from La Roche out of Allegheny Mountain Collegiate Conference, who beat Penn State Barron by just one. They felt like they were snubbed last year, and this year they took care of it in the championship game. Next two teams, a good matchup. Out of Pool C, the Benedictine Eagles out of the Northern Athletics Collegiate Conference. They'll take on the champions from the landmark, the Susquehanna Riverhawks, who beat Scranton handily to win their first conference title since 1996. Dave, two more at-large off the board. No surprise with Wittenberg, but Benedictine squarely on the ball.
Yeah, right now there's huge celebrations outside Chicago as Benedictine is into the tournament, and that may have other people on the bubble kind of looking around a little bit, hoping that they get in. This is an interesting development, to say the least. Let's start, though, in the upper right with Mount Union. Hats off to them. a lot of high expectations, I think, for some coming into the season, and we kind of were waiting to see what they would do, and then they made their presence known with a absolutely...
Since 1996. Dave, 2 more at-large off the board.
To win at Marietta and go on to win the conference championship, as you pointed out, a 17-game winning streak. Mount Union may be one of the teams people don't appreciate, and being in the upper right-hand corner tells you the committee thinks they're a very good team, at least by criteria. They'll take on Cairn, Highlanders out of the CSAC, one of those conferences where we're still getting to understand a new look for that conference. And Cairn, the Highlanders may be a little bit tough, but they're going up against a really good Mount Union squad in Ohio. We'll see how that plays out. York, kind of bittersweet and apropos that they win the CAC championship. This is their last season in CAC. They have been a long-time member. They're moving on to a new conference. It seemed appropriate that they got the conference championship, but they had a tough fight with Christopher Newport to get it. St. John Fisher knocked off across the street rival Nazareth, and unfortunately ended Nazareth's season as a result. Maybe we'll still see, but St. John Fisher, obviously a team to be reckoned with there. Wittenberg getting in. This is outstanding. Getting to host this season, which is even better. They only have 2 losses, though. Guess who they are? 2. It's Worcester in both. La Roche, as you pointed out, they had a better record last season. Didn't make the tournament because they lost in the conference title. Didn't have a resume for them that could get them in, so they took care of business, much like Center this time, to get to where they are. And again, Benedictine versus Susquehanna. I like this because it's also 2 teams we don't normally see. Kind of like Elmer's, by the way, versus Lycoming we saw down the lower left. Benedictine versus Susquehanna. Frank Marcinic, I love the guy. He's a tremendous coach at Susquehanna, and I'm thrilled to see them in the tournament as champs of the Landmark Conference.
It's going to be a fun upper 8, no doubt about that. Mount Union and Wittenberg, the 2 hosts. Our next host comes out of the Old Dominion Athletic Conference. It's the Yellow Jackets from Randolph-Macon. They're the conference champions from Ashland, Virginia. They won their 7th ODAC title ever over Virginia Wesleyan yesterday, back in the national tournament for the 2nd straight year. Their first-round opponent did not get an automatic qualifier, even though they won their conference. The Wesley Wolverines out of the Atlantic East Conference very likely got the Pool B bid here in 2020. Another Pool C bid handing out, and it goes to the Marietta Pioneers out of the Ohio Athletic Conference. National quarterfinalists a year ago. If it wasn't for Aston Francis and the Wheaton Thunder, they might have made their way to Fort Wayne. And the New Jersey Athletic Conference champions, the Lions from TCNJ, are Marietta's first-round opponent. 4th NJAC championship in program history for the Lions. Next team was probably the most exciting game in the tournament this past weekend, at least at the conference level. The Centennial Conference Championship, the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays beat Swarthmore by 2 on an incredible buzzer beater from Connor Delaney, 17-footer as time expired to win the conference title and hand Swarthmore its only loss of the season. They are hosting Penn State Harrisburg out of the Northeastern Athletic Conference after the Lions beat Lancaster Bible in overtime to win the conference championship. Another Pool C bid. This one goes to the Engineers from WPI out of the New Mac. They will head to Johns Hopkins, and they'll play the Maccabees from Yeshiva. They are terrific 27-1 on the season. Their leading scorer this year, Ryan Terrell, dropped nearly 23 points per game. How about that Centennial Conference Championship game, Dave?
Oh, that game was a dandy. Connor Delaney is a heck of a player. He's just a junior, so watch out. He's probably going to be back for another season. They are the only team to beat Swarthmore this season, and of course did it at the right time and at Swarthmore, which might be the right place. They're at home is Johns Hopkins, and that certainly makes things interesting for them. They need to take advantage of those opportunities if they can. That's a great place to play. Both are
leading scorer this year, Ryan Terrell, drops nearly 23 points.
This is a fun atmosphere, but they need to focus against Penn State Harrisburg. They can be tough. Even though they're coming out of the NEAC. They're previous CAC members, so they are battle-tested as a program. I'll stay down there in that corner just quickly to talk about WPI and Yeshiva. This is a wonderful matchup as well at Johns Hopkins. What's interesting about Yeshiva going to Johns Hopkins is Yeshiva is a well-watched program, for lack of a better description, around the world by the Jewish community. 2 years ago when they were in the tournament, they actually had the game on Torah TV because so many people wanted to watch it. They're coming to Baltimore, which has a large Jewish community. That place is probably going to be rocking and not feel like a Johns Hopkins gym necessarily for Yeshiva, but I'm glad to see they're in the tournament. And WPI squad, really good squad. Again, knocked off by Chris Carter in the championship. I love this game. And then you see the Johns Hopkins defensively hit for Steve Baltimore. Greatly matchup. Putting in the performance, Randolph Macon winning the ODAC championship. Sometimes the number one seeds cannot get out of that championship. That was 3 straight games at Salem Civic Center for the ODAC men, and Randolph Macon to come out of that shows how strong they are. They'll take on Wesley, as you pointed out, Pool B bid. They beat Wanted Mercy in the conference championship to bolster that resume to give it to them. But they did it without their head coach. Their head coach, Steve Burrows, was in the hospital for the weekend. He will hopefully be there on Friday, but hats off to them for getting it done despite the adversity. And then Marietta versus TCNJ, nice little matchup of regions we don't normally see. Marietta is really tough to play at home. They're going to have to do stuff on the road, and another great environment.
There you have it.
And that place will be jammed again for the Yellow Jackets games. These are fascinating games. Randolph Macon to come out of that shows how strong they are. They'll take on Wesley, as you pointed out, a Pool B bid. They beat Wanted Mercy in the conference championship to bolster that resume to give it to them. But they did it without their head coach. Their head coach, Dean Burrows, was in the hospital for the weekend. He will hopefully be there on Friday, but hats off to them on getting it done despite the adversity. And then Marietta versus TCNJ, nice little matchup of regions we don't normally see. Marietta is really tough to play at home. They're going to have to do stuff on the road, and another great environment in Randolph Macon. That place will be jammed again for the Yellow Jackets games. These are fascinating games right there in Randolph Macon and at Johns Hopkins.
It's a great section of the bracket, no doubt. Meanwhile, more opening weekend hosting duties for another at-large team. It's the Pride from Springfield, their 18th NCAA tournament appearance out of the new MAC. They will host the Kangaroos from SUNY Canton, who beat Maine Farmington by just 1 point to win the championship in the North Atlantic Conference. Just the 7th year for the program. In the Commonwealth Coast Conference. They're hot at the right time. 9 wins in a row for the Bison. They four-peat as conference tournament champions. 2 more at-larges coming up. The first one is out of the NESCAC, the Colby Mules. 4th NCAA tournament appearance. Sam Jefferson, the #1 3-point shooter in the country. Colby lost the championship game in the NESCAC to Tufts. And they will host the Captains from Christopher Newport out of the Capital Athletic Conference, another at-large team. Dave, your thoughts on what I think could be one of the more fun sections of this bracket?
Oh yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun, and we're hosting games at the birthplace of basketball in Springfield. How apropos of that! They've got a great player there in Jake Ross, who has put this team on his back at times, doing 55 points against Coast Guard in an overtime game earlier this season, along with 21 rebounds, by the way. He can get it all done, but he can also get his teammates involved. And they're a good team, despite the fact that Coast Guard went on that incredible run in the new MAC. Springfield will be 3 Liberty League teams in, despite what it did to Hobart and RPI. They're in their second year of existence. They're nationally ranked in the second year of existence. Are you in video?
And welcome back into Max Live. I'm Yehoshua Segal, joined by Dani, Katz, and Akiva Poppers. Yeshiva is traveling to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. 1 o'clock Friday, they'll play WPI. Akiva Poppers, what can you tell us about WPI?
Yeah, they're really good.
Stevens getting the host. Stevens goes into the MAC team for the first time this season and wins the conference title. Not very nice of them, isn't it, for the rest of the conference, but they get the job done. And then they'll take on Nichols. Bison are always a tough team. They've almost become a perennial NCAA tournament team at this point in time. That's a nice little matchup of different styles, in my opinion. Against Kobe and the NESCAC, Kobe,
Dani Katz,
was a darling of the season.
co-captain Dani Katz, joins us after a great day yesterday. What is the feeling now? Now that you know where you're going and who you're playing, what are some thoughts?
It's going to be exciting. Coming home to Baltimore, seeing everybody. I expect a lot of Jews coming out for us in Baltimore. It should be a packed house. It's going to be exciting for everybody to be there. So we're excited about what's about to happen.
And we mentioned a small gym. Make sure to get there early. 1 p.m. on Friday. Yeshiva will pay WPI. And Dani, is there a disappointment sort of that you're not hosting, or everyone just ready to go and excited?
I mean, we wanted to host. We thought it'd be a cool thing for the university and the athletic department, but we were ready not to. We didn't think we were going to. We had a possibility of doing it, but we're ready to go to Hopkins. We're ready to play and show the people what we can do in this division.
Yehoshua, you mentioned that John Hopkins is a small gym. Yeshiva has a very small gym. John Hopkins only
And speaking of St. Louis, been tortured waiting this long for the Bears, but Wash U is in the field. 20-5 on the season out of the University Athletic Association. And they'll open up the tournament.
Well, there you have it. Thank you for joining us today on the Special Coverage Monday Selection Show. We will keep you updated on our social media for when our future coverages will be. Thank you for joining us and have a great day.
One more at-large team left in the bracket.